What's up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of the Rich Summers Report podcast. Today, I am going to break down a full guide on how to start your personal brand in 2025, the most powerful asset and the most important asset that you can build for yourself in 2025 and beyond. Just 3 years ago, actually almost to the date, I decided to start building out my personal brand. And at the time I had 4,000 followers on Instagram. I knew nothing about brand building, nothing about content. And since then, I've been able to go from 4,000 to over 400,000 followers across all the different platforms, and 100x my personal brand and social media audience in just a matter of 3 years. And so I'm telling you right now, this is the most important thing that you could do for yourself in 2025 and beyond. I'm going to be dropping some nuggets on how I did it. I'm going to be giving you guys some good strategies that you can implement into your own personal branding strategies. And then make sure you guys stick around to the end. I'm going to have some key takeaways that you guys can implement today. So, if you're a business owner or a real estate investor right now, truth is, if you are not adapting to technology, you are not using social media, you are not using personal branding, it's going to be very, very tough to compete with those of us that are. But more importantly, you are going to be leaving a lot of money on the table. And also, you're going to be holding back on all those individuals out there that you can influence and inspire and touch and that sort of thing. I'm going to give you guys a couple examples. So people like Kim Kardashian, Kim, $1.7 billion net worth through personal branding, through everything that she's doing, because she knew how to get attention, and most importantly, she knew how to monetize all that attention. Look at folks like Conor McGregor, UFC fighter. The guy's been unrelevant in the game, hasn't fought in forever. He's lost the majority of his last 4 or 5 fights, and the guy still has the personal brand. He starts a whiskey company a few years back, Proper 12 Whiskey, and sells Proper 12 Whiskey for $600 million. It's not because Conor McGregor is the best entrepreneur or the best businessman. It's simply because he's got a large brand. He knows how to get eyeballs. He knows how to get attention. And people do business, and they buy from those folks they know, like, and trust. And look at the Paul brothers, Jake Paul and Logan Paul. Think about what they're doing right now. These guys are literally, I believe they grew up in Cleveland, Ohio. And because of their brand, their YouTube platform, their podcast, and because they've been able to get all these eyeballs, they have not only been able to get a ton of sponsorship deals out of it and brand deals out of it, but in addition to that, they've been able to get boxing bouts with some of the biggest name boxers in the entire world. And we're talking large purses. And if we're talking the boxing game right now, it really, really just shows you the power of the personal brand. The largest fights now from a pay-per-view standpoint are now with these YouTube stars, Jake Paul, Logan Paul, and not with the best boxers in the world. And so, Jake Paul, he currently has a net worth estimated around $80 million. Logan, net worth around $150 million, all because of the personal brand. And the list goes on, guys, but it builds trust at scale. In addition to that, guys, it levels up your network. So some of the names that I've been able to, establish relationships with, genuine relationships with, people like Dan Martell, Tariq Musa, Grant Cardone, Carlton Dennis, Pace Morby, Jordan Belford, Wolf of Wall Street, Ryan Garcia, top boxer in the world right now, people like Ryan Pineda, Mark Wahlberg started following me on Instagram. Donald Trump Jr. started following me. Eva Longoria, Desperate Housewives started following me on Instagram. And so you never know what kind of doors or opportunities these relationships will lead to. But it all starts with putting yourself out there, building that personal brand. I'll give you guys one more example. So when I left the air traffic control facility back in 2019, I was working as an 11-year air traffic controller. I knew nothing about business, nothing about real estate at that time. Well, I cashed out my 401k with 2 old partners at the time. We all cashed out our 401ks, bought real estate together, and we partnered together. Well, due to some disconnects that we had with them, I got to a point in 2022 where I no longer felt like I was going to reach my full potential under that partnership. And so I decided to leave them and start my own thing. And one of the reasons I left that partnership was because they did not want to build a personal brand. They did not believe in the podcast. They did not believe in media and content. And I did. I saw the vision at that time, and that was in 2022. That's when I decided to go all in on the brand. And I just found out that one of those partners actually, as of a couple months ago, went back to the air traffic control facility. So meanwhile, I went all in on the brand. They didn't see the value in it. We're scaling everything at a high clip. We have a ton of leads for the business. It is literally, the brand is everything for us. It's driving everything that we do. Capital raised for Summers Capital, all the back-end products that we have for our other offers. It's driving everything, brand deals like with Built, etc. One of them is back at the air traffic control facility because they did not believe in the personal brand. So I'm telling you guys right now, the personal brand is the solution. If you're a business owner, if you're an entrepreneur, if you're a real estate investor, it is the solution. And it's going to open up a lot of doors and a lot of opportunities for you that you otherwise wouldn't have had. It's also, in addition to that, it's going to give you the ability to hire and retain good quality team members. It's also going to, like I said, like I alluded to, level up your network. And all of it goes full circle. So if you guys are raising private capital, that's going to level up as a function. If you guys are looking to get brand deals, affiliate marketing deals, that's going to level up as a function. There's so many doors that open up that you guys literally don't even realize as a function of it. And one of the best ways to do it, guys, one of the best ways to do it, obviously, is, social media, but also the podcast, right? So you guys are watching this on YouTube right now, or for those of you that are listening to this on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, you'll understand this. Podcasting right now is undervalued attention. It is now official that you can learn more listening to a podcast today than you can going to a 4-year university. The cat is officially out of the bag. If you look at the data out there, the number of podcast listeners worldwide, in 2019, we had about 274 million podcast listeners worldwide. In 2024, we ended 2024 about 6 months ago. We ended 2024 with about 504 million podcast listeners worldwide. So the number of podcast listeners worldwide is essentially doubling every single 5 years. It is undervalued attention. There are not a lot of podcast hosts out there because there's a barrier to entry, right? You got to get equipment, you got to get podcast stuff, you got to get cameras, you got to get comfortable talking on the microphone. Let's face it, it's a little bit weird at first talking on a podcast and hearing yourself talk. And so you got to get the reps in, you got to get the at-bats in and get comfortable with being in front of the camera. But most importantly, it takes a little bit of work. And so I think most podcasts, I believe the stat is something like most podcasts die, I believe 80% of podcasts die within the first 10 episodes. That's a real stat, right? And the reason being is because people get into something and then they realize, hey, it's not as easy as they thought. It's going to create, it's going to be a little bit more work than they thought. And it's not going to grow as quickly as they thought, right? But the truth is, I don't know anyone out there that's had a podcast for 3, 4, 5 years that has consistently put out an episode every single week without missing an episode to where that podcast hasn't substantially grown their brand. And I think the extreme example of this would be someone like Joe Rogan. Look at Joe Rogan. Joe's put out 3 episodes a week for 15 years. And look what it's done for Joe's brand. Joe Rogan might be the most influential, most powerful person in the entire world right now. Because think about this. Joe has the ability to call anyone in the entire world, presidents, ex-presidents, athletes, celebrities, movie stars, musicians, literally anyone in the world, Elon Musk, Jeff Bezos, and that person will drop at the literally drop of a dime. They will drop everything they're doing to go fly out and meet up with Joe to have a conversation on his podcast. And it's because of his platform and his podcast. It is not because of all the stuff he does with UFC and ESPN and his stand-up comedy. It's because of the podcast platform and the brand that he's built for himself. And so I'm telling you guys right now, it is the secret sauce. I know a lot of business owners out there. I know a lot of real estate investors out there that are, doing pretty well. But it always amazes me when I hear business owners out there doing very well and they're doing it without a podcast. 90%, this is the truth, 90% of everything that we bring in, whether it's capital raised for Summers Capital, which allows us to continue to buy more boutique hotels in our real estate fund, or if it's our back-end products, I would say on average about 90% of it comes from the podcast and not from social media. And it makes a lot of sense because if you look at all the audiences out there from the various platforms, you got YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, Threads, and then you got the long form. You throw in TikTok as well, but then you got the long form, Apple Podcasts and Spotify. If you look at all those platforms out there and their audiences, hands down, it's not even close. The highest net worth audience, the most intelligent audience, the action takers, the people that are actually going to be converting to become your clients, those are the podcast listeners because, and it makes sense, guys. Think about it. People are listening to podcasts because they want to learn the why. They want to learn how to improve. They want to learn how they can go do the thing. They're listening to you while they go to work, while they drive to school, while they, go and do their daily activities. They're listening to you and they're spending a lot more time with you. And so it's a different avatar. It's a much more intelligent avatar than someone that's just mindlessly scrolling through 30-second TikToks trying to get those short dopamine hits. And so that's why I say if you're a business owner out there or a real estate investor, or maybe you have a side hustle or you're looking to get into business real estate, the most important audience that you could cultivate is the long form audience, and everything is going that direction. Like I said, it's undervalued attention. And so there's a lot more value in having 100 podcast listeners than there is in having, 1,000 social media followers. And there's a truth to it. Now, I will say this, out of all the social media platforms out there, I think Instagram is probably the most conducive and most aligned with, clientele. An audience converting into customers, investors, and all that sort of thing. And I also think that Instagram, out of all the platforms out there, from a social standpoint, at least here in the US, for a lot of folks that are kind of in that, 25 to 50 age range, I think a lot of those folks primarily use Instagram and not so much TikTok. Okay. And so a couple of hacks here, which, we're currently utilizing, and a couple of hacks to where I think that a lot of the best creators in the space right now are using. And guys, just to put this in perspective, I mean, if you look at all the top creators right now in the business and the real estate space that are really growing at a fast clip right now, I can count on two hands how many are really doing it the right way and truly organically growing very, very quickly through business and real estate content. Because guys, keep in mind, these algorithms are always shifting. And so what happened or what worked for you 3 years ago is not going to work for you today. And what's working for you today is not going to be working for you 6 months from now and a couple years from now for sure. And so you always got to be adjusting and pivoting based on how the algorithms are performing. Now, I'll give you an example of this. I think people like Cody Sanchez, people like Dan Martell, people like Alex and Layla Hormozi, if you look at their content, it's strictly business and real estate focused content, mindset as well, throw a little bit of family stuff in there, and self-growth. But what I'm trying to say is they are growing at a very high clip. They're getting a ton of shares on their content. They're getting a ton of views, a ton of reach. I even look at content creators that are, above me, like people that I might know personally, people like Ryan Pineda, Grant Cardone, and even Pace. And I'll say this to their face. I don't believe that their content strategy right now is what's best for how the algorithms are. And so although Grant probably has about 5 million followers right now, what worked well for him 3-4 years ago is not working well today. And so you can tell based on the number of views that some of those names get on their content today is really, really low. And so it tells me they haven't shifted their content strategy, or they haven't hired the right team members who have been able to put the right content strategy in place. And so going back to the right strategy, what's working today, guys, you got to keep in mind these algorithms, how they work on the different platforms, whether it's TikTok, Instagram, Twitter, etc. They know their job is to keep the users on the platform, okay? And so they know, how do they keep the users on the platform? Well, it's by showing users viral content. So on the Explore page, on the Discover page, on the Suggested Follow page, they are going to show you TikTok videos and Reels that are viral content. And how do they gauge what it's a good piece of content versus not a good piece of content? And it's two things. It's the number of shares that a piece of content gets, then also watch time. Okay. And so one thing that I've always done over the last 3 years is I've always posted the number of shares in mind. I want people to share my content because one, the algorithm's going to get triggered and it's going to know, hey, if a lot of people are sharing this piece of content, well, it must be a good piece of content. We're going to feature it on the Explore page, Discover page, etc., and you're going to gain followers from it and views. But secondly, if people share your content to friends or they share your piece of content on their story, well, there's a compounding effect of more and more people are going to watch their story and see your content, and then more people are going to discover you organically just simply by people sharing your content. And so that's how I've always approached the content, guys. Hey guys, real quick, I just wanted to personally thank you for listening to this podcast. It means the world to me. The only way this show grows is by word of mouth. If there's anyone in your circle that could benefit from this podcast, it would mean the world to me if you could share it with them via text or maybe on your Instagram story. And I'll be sure to keep an eye out on my Instagram for shares so I can reshare you on my Instagram story. Again, thank you so much for listening, and it means the world to me. Now back to the show. And I think that's how you should be approaching the content too. And so that's what the best creators are doing right now, is always approaching the content from a place of number of shares. And so I always ask myself, hey, when we post anything, whether it's from me or it's from my editing team, we always ask ourselves, hey, is this clip valuable enough to, or if I was watching this piece and I didn't know who I was, would I find this piece of content valuable enough to share on my story or share with a friend or a family member? And if it's not, then it's not something that we're going to post. We probably need to add a couple, things to this piece of content to make it a little bit more exciting. We need to chop out some of the parts of the content that maybe is a little bit dull, to make this piece more engaging. And then watch time is the other thing. And so I always say with these videos, it doesn't matter if it's a minute and a half or it's 45 seconds or 30 seconds. If it's a good piece of content and people engage with it, it's going to get a lot of views. What matters most is that the hooks are very important, but also there's no dry parts of the content. So let's just say you have a good hook, but then from second 10, from second 25, there's 15 seconds of absolutely no value being provided. Well, a lot of people are going to drop off. They're going to scroll. They're never going to get to the end of the video. And even though at the end of the video, you might have an amazing banger closing statement, well, the truth is because there was 15 seconds in the middle where everyone fell off, no one's going to get to that end part. So it doesn't matter. So that's where split testing comes in. Okay. So split testing is a very important thing, and the best creators are utilizing it. We're utilizing split testing as well with a lot of my content. What do I mean by split testing? So I'll give you an example. So, Alex Hormozi does a really good job of this. Cody Sanchez does a good job of this. We're doing this as well. And it's this. So Twitter and Threads is a great testing platform to test all of your ideas. And so if you guys look at my Instagram, I put out a lot of Twitter posts out there. But if you look at my Twitter and Threads, we split test a lot of different ideas and posts out there. And so what Alex Hormozi does is he will post 6, 7, sometimes even up to 8 times per day on Twitter and Threads. And then at the end of each week, that's a combination of about 50, 56 different Twitter and Threads posts. And then he can go back and hand select the best performing ones. And if they don't perform, they never make it over to Instagram, but only the ones that are the best performing out of the 56 make it over to Instagram. And then now that becomes a Twitter post on Instagram. And if that Twitter post performs well on Instagram, then that Twitter post is now going to become the hook for a 45-second video, which will be a talking head video. And so you can say the Twitter post as the hook, and then relate that to our personal story. And then now that becomes a 45-second video. And if that performs on TikTok and Instagram, then now you can take that content, that Twitter post, and now that's the title of a 10 to 12-minute YouTube video to where you can go a lot deeper, and a podcast episode to where you can go a lot deeper. And so it all starts with the top of the funnel, which is the Twitter and the Threads, and split testing it. And again, any of those Twitter and Threads posts that don't get engagement, those never make it to the second part of the funnel, which would be Instagram. Now, I'll give you another example of how this works. So in regards to the podcast, with the podcast, it's very important to pull the right clips and tee up the right conversations in the podcast. One of the things that you guys want to be doing if you start a podcast, and again, you guys don't need to have this elaborate in-person set. I think a lot of people forget that this is my second podcast that you guys see here. My first podcast I started in 2019 with my 2 old partners, Sean and Mike, and it was called the Multifamily Takeoff, and it was all about apartment investing. And, after 100 episodes, I got bored about talking about apartment investing. It was the same story every single time in the same conversation. And so literally after 100 episodes, I got bored. And if you're getting bored as the host, the listeners are probably getting bored as well. And so back in 2022, when I decided to remove myself from the partnership, I told them, I said, you guys keep the podcast. I'm going to start my own. And that was when I formed this podcast, which you guys see here today. I took everything I liked and didn't like about that old podcast and I made it in this one. And that's why with this podcast, I have the ability to go more broad. I have the ability to go more wide. I can bring on athletes. I can bring on business owners. I can bring on real estate investors. I can go solo and talk about whatever I want to talk about, just like I am today. But if you guys see a general theme of the podcast that is business, real estate, self-growth, I'm trying to provide as much value to you guys as we can. And I believe, that's the name of the game. The more value that you give, the faster that you're going to grow. When you guys put out content, there's really two types of content. There's entertainment and there's education, okay? And so you got to get clear on what that's going to be for you. And so I think as long as, for the most part, if you're going to put out entertainment content, you probably should be someone that already has a brand and already has a following. So if you're a celebrity or a movie star, you're a famous musician, okay, or a stand-up comedian, then you could probably put out entertaining content and people are going to engage with it. Now, if you are starting your brand from scratch like I was 3 years ago, you're going to grow primarily by putting out educational content and providing a lot of value, giving free game, giving all your best tricks and secrets. And that's how you're going to create a lot of shares and people are going to share your content organically. And then that's how new people are going to discover you. And that's how you grow your audience from scratch. Okay. And so to pull this back full circle, when we talk podcast split testing, so we book these guests and then we have these hour-long episodes, these conversations. One of the things that you guys can do when you guys start your podcast, and again, it does not need to be an elaborate in-person set. It can literally just be a virtual set. And you can set up a virtual set for relatively cheap, nice equipment, nice camera, nice lighting, a nice microphone. I do like these Shure SM7Bs. This Shure SM7B has been around forever. Michael Jackson recorded Thriller on this microphone. And in addition to that, Joe Rogan uses it for his podcast. All the top podcasters use it. It's a great mic. But you can set up a nice virtual set for less than $2,000 and have all the best equipment. And there's a lot of advantages of having a virtual set to where you record on Zoom or Riverside Radio, some of these other third-party platforms. And a big advantage of having a virtual set is you can book guests from all different types of locations in the world. They don't need to fly in and spend money on travel and accommodations to come on your in-person podcast, especially early on. So, with my first podcast, the Multifamily Takeoff, we landed Grant Cardone before we even had video. Like Grant Cardone in April of 2020, right after the pandemic dropped, him and Elena were like, hey, we're on lockdown, so we're just gonna go on a bunch of podcasts, right time, right place. We landed Grant Cardone episode 22. We had no idea what we were doing. We didn't even have video. And that was the first time I had an episode with Grant. And so I'm telling you guys right now, if you want to start a podcast, I would suggest starting with a virtual set first. It only costs a couple $1,000s to set it up, and you can land bigger name guests and get the reps in, get the at-bats in, especially early on when there's going to be a lot less people listening. And then you can always convert and transition into an in-person set as you scale the podcast and as it becomes a bigger thing and as you have a bigger listener base. But once you guys start scheduling guests and, for example, the episodes that you guys see here, a couple tips is you want to promote the clips on Instagram. And so what we like to use is this is a third-party platform that my editor, Jordan, discovered, and it's called Opus. And it's AI infused, and it pulls you run an episode in there and it will pull anywhere from 25 to 30 clips and suggested hooks, and it will grade the hooks. And so I wouldn't say it's 100% accurate. You'll have to go and hand select the best ones. And then what you can do, and this is the hack, we learned this from Sam, who is Dan Martell's creative director. And again, Dan Martell was on the podcast about 10 episodes ago. Go check that episode out. Very good if you didn't listen to it. But Dan went from 170K on Instagram to 1.2 million followers. He 10x'd his following in literally about 12 months' time because of Sam as creative director. And what Sam said is they're treating TikTok solely as a testing platform. They don't care if they grow on TikTok. It's not their audience. It's not their avatar. It's strictly a testing platform. And then whatever performs on TikTok makes it over to Instagram. But if anything does not perform on TikTok, it never makes it over to Instagram. And so the idea is you're only putting out bangers on Instagram. And so the algorithm is thinking, damn, like Rich is only putting out bangers on Instagram, and so we're going to feature his stuff more and more and more, and it builds trust at scale, because when you guys put out content that doesn't pop off, you start to lose trust and people unfollow. And so the name of the game is literally to split test all of your content on the different platforms if you guys want to grow successfully and do it right. It's going to give you more confidence when you actually do go to post. There's also another feature called the Instagram trial feature. The real trial feature on Instagram. And that's another way for you guys to test your content. And so to summarize, we use Opus as a way to identify all the clips. It will give you 30 short hooks. You can go and look at those short hooks, and then you can pull them, and then you can split test the best 5 or 6 on TikTok. And then of those 5 or 6 on TikTok, you can pull the ones to perform. If they perform, maybe jazz up the video a little bit, throw in some better B-roll, captions, etc. And then you can put it out on Instagram. You know it already performed, and so you know it likely will perform on Instagram. Another great tip that you guys can use, a strategy, is you guys should always have your top 4 or 5 content creators in your niche. So for example, if you're in the fitness industry, you guys should have at all times 4 or 5 creators in the fitness industry that you guys all look up to and admire, and these should be 4 or 5 people that are successfully growing, that are ahead of you, and they're growing their brands and they're doing it the right way. Go and study all their best performing clips, their best performing reels on Instagram in terms of views. You'll see a direct correlation between the number of views and number of shares. Make an Excel sheet of all these best performing. Let's just say you go down and then you take your top 5 creators and you go down and pick out their top 10 performing reels. Well, now you got 50 clips and 50 hooks. See how they talk to the camera, see how they do their hooks, see how they do their call to actions. And now you also have 50 different content ideas and topics, assuming that you can resonate and you guys have personal experience talking about those topics. You already know that people engage with those topics, so you already know those hooks work. And so assuming that you guys have personal experience with those topics, go out and shoot those videos, put them into your own words, go out in the field, and put them into your own content strategy. Okay, so you guys don't have to always be reinventing the wheel. And then make sure you guys are implementing AI. You can use AI for your titles, for your YouTube thumbnails, for your captions on Instagram and all that good stuff, and also stickers in addition to this. So split testing is the key. And again, guys, when you guys start your podcast, like I said, it is the hack and it's undervalued attention. When you guys start your podcast, you guys just commit to 1 episode a week. Like I said, 80% of podcasts die within the first 10 episodes. And so the best thing that you guys can do is to just commit to 1 episode a week for 1 hour. And I promise you guys set up the right systems and the right processes, you guys should ideally just show up, record the episode, and everything else should be delegated out. You guys should not be editing your own podcast. We don't even edit our own podcast in-house with my team. It's just not the best use of their time. We use a third-party podcast editor, and they send it back to us typically same day, and then we'll be able to put it out. But it's not the best use of your time, and so you guys should not be editing your own stuff. You guys should be using a third party to edit the podcast. But I say all this in that the podcast is the secret sauce. Commit to 1 episode a week, and I promise you guys, if you guys commit to posting daily, I know it's not going to be easy if you're starting from scratch, but if you guys commit to posting daily on social media, I think that's a good baseline, once a day, and you guys commit to putting out 1 podcast episode a week, every single week for 12 months, you have to commit to it for a year. I promise you guys, you will open up more doors and more opportunities for you, and you will get more leads for your business, and you will make more money than you ever thought possible. I promise you, it will change your life. It just changed my life over the last 3 years completely. Like, my entire life has completely changed. Like I said at the top of the show, the ability to get lending, the ability to raise capital, the ability to get, we get the best deals with a lot of the vendors that we negotiate with, all the subscriptions we have, because we now have the platform and these vendors know we can promote their stuff. And so we get the best deals on everything, the ability to hire and retain good quality team members, capital, leads for the business. Like, literally everything changes when you guys build the personal brand. So I believe it is the most valuable thing that you guys could build for yourself, the most valuable asset that you could build for yourself in 2025 and beyond. I promise you guys, commit to it for 12 months and it will change the game for you. Builds trust at scale, and people want to do business with those they know, like, and trust. For any of you guys that resonate with this episode and you resonate with what you're hearing today, and you're ready to take the next step and you are committed to building your personal brand here in 2025, one of the best ways to do it is to work with a committed group of content creators. So for any of you guys that are serious, I have a small opportunity where I'm working with a select group of content creators. I started this a year ago. It's called the 7-Figure Creator, and it's going very well. We have a tight niche group of content creators, business owners, badasses, all positive-minded, forward-thinking, like-minded individuals building their personal brands, getting more leads for their business. We talk a lot about how to grow the audience through podcasting, through social media, what's working, not working with the algorithms. I bring on all the best guest speakers. We've had on folks like Pace Morby, Dan Martell, Carlton Dennis, Ryan Pineda, just to name a few. In addition to that, we have a 24/7 chat. It's very collaborative. We do in-person retreats. But most importantly, you'll be able to work directly with me. And we do spend a lot of time on top of the funnel, lead magnets, and most importantly, how to have fun with it and to monetize that brand so you can get more leads and ultimately make more money. And so if you guys want to learn more about what it would look like working directly with me and with our community of creators, you can go to the7figurecreator.com to book a free call with my team. Again, that's the number 7 figurecreator.com to book a free call with my team. And I think this concludes this episode of the Rich Drummers Report. Listeners, I appreciate you guys tuning in. We'll see you guys on the next one. Happy Saturday. Let's go. Peace.